Hello everyone, and welcome to Unheard. This is the place where real people share their deepest, most painful truths, the stories they've never told anyone before. Today's confession comes from someone who made a split-second decision that nearly destroyed everything she loved. If you have a story you need to share, you can reach us at unheardchannel@gmail.com. Now let's listen. Last night, my husband looked me in the eye and said, "I keep having dreams about coffee tasting bitter." I haven't slept since. For 3 years, I thought I was safe. For 3 years, I thought he would never remember. For 3 years, I've been living with the most horrible secret, watching him thank me every day for something that should make him hate me forever. But now he's starting to remember, and when he figures out what I really did to him that night, when he realizes what kind of person he's been married to, I don't think either of us will survive it. I need to tell someone the truth before it's too late. Before he remembers everything. Before my world completely falls apart. 3 years ago, I made a choice that haunts me every single second of every single day. A choice that almost cost me the only person I've ever truly loved. A choice that turned me into someone I don't recognize when I look in the mirror. You see, I've been living with this secret for so long that it's eating me alive from the inside out. And tonight, for the first time ever, I'm going to tell someone what really happened that night. What I really did. What I'm really guilty of. Because the truth is, I didn't just lie to the doctors. I didn't just lie to my family. I didn't just lie to the police. I lied to everyone. And that lie almost killed the man I love more than my own life. But what I'm about to tell you gets so much worse than you think. Because not only did I poison my own husband, not only did I watch him nearly die while lying about it, but there's something else. Something I've never told anyone. Something that makes this story even more twisted and horrifying. Stay with me, because you need to hear all of it to understand just how deep this betrayal goes. You need to understand who I was before that night, who I thought I was, and why I believed lying was better than facing the truth. You know the type. The woman who has everything together, who never makes mistakes, who everyone looks at and thinks she's got it all figured out. That was me. Or at least, that's who I pretended to be. For 8 years, I had built this image of myself as the wife who could handle anything. The woman who cooked perfect dinners, kept a spotless house, remembered every anniversary, every birthday, every important moment. I was the wife that other women envied, and other men wished they had married. But here's what nobody knew. I was falling apart. My husband had been working 2 jobs for 3 years straight. We were drowning in debt. Medical bills for my mother's cancer treatment. Student loans that felt like they were choking us. Credit cards that we kept maxing out just to survive. And through it all, I kept pretending everything was fine. I kept cooking those perfect dinners even when we couldn't afford groceries. I kept cleaning that spotless house even when the utilities were about to be cut off. I kept smiling and acting like we had it all together when inside, I was screaming. My husband never knew how bad things really were. I handled all the finances, all the bills, all the stress. I told him everything was fine because I couldn't bear the thought of him thinking I had failed as a wife. I couldn't stand the idea of being seen as someone who couldn't manage her own household. So I kept lying. Little lies at first. Oh, that bill? I already paid it. The bank called? It was just a routine check. No, honey, we're doing fine financially, but lies have a way of growing. They multiply and spread until they consume everything in their path. And that's exactly what happened to me. And here's what makes this so much worse. I wasn't just lying about money. I was hiding something else. Something that would have explained everything to the doctors that night. Something that, if I had told them, could have saved my husband from years of suffering. But I'm getting ahead of myself. First, you need to know about the night everything changed. The night everything changed started like any other night. My husband had just gotten home from his second job at the warehouse. It was almost midnight, and he was exhausted. I could see it in his eyes, the way his shoulders sagged, the way he could barely keep his head up. But there I was, waiting for him with dinner. Because that's what the perfect wife does, right? She has dinner ready no matter what time her husband gets home. Except I wasn't thinking clearly. I was stressed beyond belief because earlier that day, I had gotten a call from the bank. Our mortgage payment was 3 months behind, 3 months, and they were starting foreclosure proceedings. But did I tell my husband? No. Instead, I poured myself a glass of wine, then another, because that's how I was coping with the stress back then. I was drinking more and more, but hiding it from everyone, including him. And here's where this gets truly twisted. The alcohol wasn't the only thing I was hiding from him. There was something else I was taking. Something that would later make what I did to him even more dangerous than the doctors realized. By the time he got home, I was drunk. Not fall-down drunk, but drunk enough that my judgment was completely impaired. Drunk enough to make the worst decision of my entire life. My husband sat down at the kitchen table to eat, and I started pacing around the kitchen, cleaning things that didn't need to be cleaned, moving things around just to have something to do with my hands. I was anxious, nervous, and the alcohol was making everything feel more intense. "You look tired," I said to him. "I am tired," he replied, "but we need the money." And right there, hearing him say those words, I snapped. Because he didn't know we needed the money. I did. I was the one carrying this burden alone. I was the one lying awake at night wondering how we were going to survive. I was the one fielding calls from debt collectors and making excuses to our friends about why we couldn't go out anymore. What I did next, what I'm about to tell you, it's going to make you sick. It made me sick, and it's been making me sick every day for 3 years. "Maybe you should take something to help you sleep," I said. "You've been working so hard." My husband looked at me and smiled that tired smile I knew so well. "Maybe you're right." And that's when I made the decision that still makes me sick to my stomach. I went to our medicine cabinet and grabbed a bottle of sleeping pills that had been prescribed to me months earlier for my anxiety. The doctor had told me to take 1, maybe 2 if I really couldn't sleep. But I had never taken them because they made me feel groggy the next day. I looked at that bottle, and in my drunk, anxious, overwhelmed state, I thought, if he takes a few of these, he'll sleep really well tonight, and maybe tomorrow I'll figure out how to tell him about our financial situation. But here's where my story gets so much worse than you can imagine. I didn't give him 1 pill. I didn't even give him 2 pills. I crushed up 4 pills and mixed them into his coffee, 4 pills, when the maximum dose was 2. But wait, it gets worse, because those weren't just any sleeping pills, and what I mixed them with, what I had also been taking that night. It created a combination that was essentially lethal. I told myself I was helping him. I told myself he needed the sleep. I told myself it would be fine. But deep down, I think part of me wanted him to sleep so deeply that I wouldn't have to face another conversation about money, another night of pretending everything was okay, another moment of looking into his eyes and lying about our situation. My husband drank the coffee without question. Why would he question it? I was his wife. He trusted me completely. About 30 minutes later, he started getting drowsy. "Wow," he said, "I'm really tired tonight." "Good," I said. "Go to bed. You need the rest." And he did. He went to bed, kissed me goodnight, and told me he loved me. Those might have been the last words he ever said to me. Because what happened next, what I found when I went to check on him, it's an image that will never leave my mind. I stayed awake for about an hour, cleaning the kitchen, trying to calm my nerves. But then I heard something that made my blood run cold. David was making strange noises, not snoring. Something else. Something wrong. I ran to our bedroom, and what I saw will haunt me for the rest of my life. My husband was unconscious, but his breathing was shallow and irregular. His lips were starting to turn blue. His skin was cold and clammy. I knew immediately what I had done. The sleeping pills. I had given him too many. I should have called 911 right then and told them exactly what happened. I should have said, "My husband has overdosed on sleeping pills because I gave him 4 times the recommended dose." But I didn't. Instead, I panicked. All I could think about was what everyone would say, what everyone would think. How would I explain that I had drugged my own husband? How would I tell people that I had been lying about our finances, drinking too much, and making decisions that put his life in danger? I couldn't bear the thought of people knowing the truth about who I really was. I couldn't stand the idea of being seen as the wife who almost killed her husband because she couldn't handle her own problems. So I made another decision, a decision that I will regret for the rest of my life. I called 911, and when they asked what happened, I lied. "My husband collapsed," I said. "I don't know what's wrong. He just collapsed." The paramedics arrived within minutes, and they immediately started asking questions. "Has he taken any medications tonight?" "No," I lied. "Has he been drinking?" "No," I lied again. "Does he have any medical conditions we should know about?" "No," I lied for the 3rd time. And with each lie, I watched them struggle to figure out what was wrong with my husband. I watched them try treatment after treatment that wasn't working because they didn't know what they were treating. I stood there in our living room, watching the love of my life turn blue, watching his breathing get more and more shallow, and I said nothing. The paramedics loaded him into the ambulance, and I rode with them to the hospital. And during that entire ride, as I held his cold hand and prayed that he would be okay, I still didn't tell them the truth. At the hospital, the doctors immediately started running tests. Blood tests, brain scans, heart monitors. They were trying everything to figure out what was wrong. And I stood there, watching them work, knowing exactly what was wrong. And I stayed silent. "Ma'am," the doctor said to me, "we need to know if your husband took anything tonight. Any medications, any substances, anything at all. His symptoms are consistent with some kind of overdose, but we can't treat him properly if we don't know what he took." I looked at that doctor. I looked at my husband lying unconscious on that hospital bed, and I made the worst decision of my entire life. "He didn't take anything," I said. "I don't know what's wrong with him." The doctor looked frustrated. "Are you absolutely sure? Because his vital signs are very concerning, and if he took something, we need to know right now." "I'm sure," I lied. "He didn't take anything." And then I watched that doctor walk away, shaking his head, knowing that something wasn't adding up but having no choice but to believe me. For the next 2 hours, I sat in that hospital room, watching David fight for his life, knowing that I could end his suffering with just a few words. All I had to do was tell the truth. All I had to do was say, "He took sleeping pills. I gave them to him." But I couldn't do it. I was too scared, too ashamed, too proud to admit what I had done. Finally, after 2 hours of watching my husband's condition get worse and worse, a nurse came running into the room. "We need you to sign some papers," she said. "We're going to have to try a different approach, but we need your consent because it's risky." "What kind of approach?" I asked. "We're going to have to induce vomiting and try to flush his system," she said. "But if he's taken certain medications, this could make things worse. Are you absolutely positive he didn't take anything tonight?" I looked at my husband. His breathing was so shallow I could barely see his chest moving. His skin was gray. The monitors were beeping frantically. And in that moment, I realized that my lies might actually kill him. The nurse was holding a clipboard, waiting for my signature. "Ma'am, We need to do this right now. But if he's taken sleeping pills or any depressants, this procedure could stop his heart permanently. So I'm asking you one last time. Are you absolutely certain he didn't take anything? I looked at the monitors. I looked at his blue lips. I looked at the team of doctors preparing to try a procedure that could kill him because they didn't know what they were treating. And I realized that in about 30 seconds, I was going to sign my husband's death warrant. So finally, I told the truth. Sleeping pills, I whispered. What? The nurse said. Sleeping pills, I said louder. He took sleeping pills. How many? She asked urgently. 4, I said, and the shame in my voice was unmistakable. The nurse didn't ask any more questions. She ran out of the room, and within minutes, the entire medical team changed their approach. They knew exactly what to do now. They gave my husband medications to counteract the sleeping pills. They monitored his breathing more carefully. They adjusted his treatment completely. And slowly, over the next few hours, my husband started to improve. But the damage was done. Not just to my husband, but to me. Because in those 2 hours when I chose my reputation over my husband's life, I became someone I never thought I could become. I became someone who would rather watch the person she loves suffer than admit she had made a mistake. But wait, there's more to this story that will make you even sicker. When my husband finally woke up the next morning, the first thing he said to me was, "What happened?" And I lied again. "You collapsed," I said. "The doctors think you might have had some kind of reaction to stress." My husband looked confused. "But I feel like I've been drugged." "The doctors gave you some medications," I said quickly. "That's probably why you feel that way." And he believed me. Because why wouldn't he? I was his wife. But here's what I didn't know at the time. Here's what I found out later that made everything so much worse. The doctor who treated my husband told me privately that if I had told them about the sleeping pills immediately, my husband would have been fine within an hour. The treatment for sleeping pill overdose is straightforward when you know that's what you're dealing with. But because I waited 2 hours to tell the truth, my husband's brain was deprived of oxygen for longer than it should have been. And while he recovered, while he lived, he suffered permanent damage. But that's not the worst part. The worst part is what the doctor told me next. "Ma'am," he said, "your husband's brain scans show some areas of concern. The oxygen deprivation has caused some permanent damage to his memory centers and his pain processing centers. He's going to have problems for the rest of his life." "What kind of problems?" I asked, even though I didn't want to know the answer. "Memory issues, chronic headaches, difficulty concentrating, mood changes. These effects are permanent." And then he said something that made my blood turn to ice. "If you had told us about the overdose immediately, none of this would have happened. Your husband would have made a complete recovery." Those words have echoed in my head every single day for 3 years. None of this would have happened. My husband didn't have to suffer brain damage. He didn't have to lose his memory. He didn't have to live with chronic pain. All of that happened because I was too proud to tell the truth for 2 hours. But the story gets even worse from here. The worst part is that my husband still doesn't know the truth. He thinks his memory problems are from the stress reaction that caused him to collapse. He thinks his headaches are just from working too hard. He thinks his difficulty concentrating is just from getting older. He has no idea that his own wife nearly killed him and then lied about it. And I can't tell him. Because how do you tell someone you love that you poisoned them? How do you explain that you chose your reputation over their life? How do you admit that you watched them suffer for 2 hours because you were too proud to tell the truth? But here's where this gets truly horrifying. Every morning when my husband forgets where he put his keys, I feel sick. Every time he asks me the same question twice because he doesn't remember asking it the first time, I want to die. Every night when he takes pain medication for his headaches, I lie awake knowing that I caused every bit of his pain. But there's something else. Something I haven't told you yet. Something that makes this story even more twisted and sick. My husband thanks me. Every single day he thanks me for taking such good care of him during his medical emergency. He tells people how lucky he is to have a wife who stayed by his side through his health crisis. He brags to his friends about how I never left the hospital, how I fought for him to get the best care. He has no idea that I'm the reason he was in the hospital in the first place. He has no idea that while he was dying, I was calculating how to protect myself. He has no idea that his loving, devoted wife is actually the person who destroyed his brain. And every time he thanks me, every time he tells me he loves me, every time he says he doesn't know what he would do without me, I feel like I'm going to vomit from the guilt. But the worst part, the absolute worst part, it's getting harder and harder to keep the secret, and I'm starting to crack. Our marriage is falling apart, and my husband doesn't even know why. He thinks I'm distant because I'm stressed about money. He thinks I cry all the time because I'm overwhelmed with life. He thinks I can't look him in the eye because I'm tired. But the truth is, I can't look him in the eye because I see what I did to him every time I look at his face. I can't be intimate with him because I feel like a predator who hurt someone vulnerable. I can't have normal conversations with him because every time he forgets something, I'm reminded of my guilt. And I can't tell him the truth because I'm still, even now, too much of a coward to face the consequences of what I've done. My husband has started asking me if I want to go to marriage counseling. He thinks there's something wrong with our relationship that we can work through together. If only he knew that the something wrong is that his wife tried to drug him, lied to doctors about it, and is now living with the guilt of nearly killing him. If only he knew that every day I think about confessing, and every day I talk myself out of it because I'm still more concerned about how people will see me than I am about being honest with the person I supposedly love more than anyone else in the world. 3 years have passed since that night, and I haven't told a single person what really happened. Not my friends, not my family, not a therapist, not anyone. I've been carrying this secret alone, and it's been eating me alive. But here's what's really going to shock you. Here's the part of this story that I've been afraid to tell you. Last month, something happened that changed everything. Something that made me realize that my lies, they might not be over. Because my husband has started remembering things. Little pieces, fragments of that night. And if he remembers what really happened, if he figures out what I did to him, I don't know what I'm going to do. I've thought about suicide more times than I can count. Not because I want to die, but because I can't live with what I've done, and I can't find the courage to face it. I've thought about leaving my husband, just disappearing one day, so he doesn't have to be married to someone who hurt him so badly. But then I realized that would just hurt him more, and he still wouldn't know why. I've thought about writing him a letter explaining everything and then leaving it for him to find after I'm gone. But that feels like the coward's way out, and I've already been enough of a coward. So instead, I just keep living this half-life, going through the motions of being a wife while knowing that I'm probably the worst wife who has ever existed. But last week, something happened that terrified me. My husband was having one of his headaches. One of the headaches that I caused, and he was lying on the couch with his eyes closed. I thought he was asleep. I was in the kitchen making him some tea to help with the pain, and I was crying. Just standing there stirring his tea and crying because I know that his pain is my fault. And then I heard him say something that made my blood freeze. "Coffee," he said quietly. That night, there was something wrong with my coffee. I dropped the spoon. It clattered on the floor and my husband opened his eyes. "What did you just say?" I asked him. He looked confused. "I don't know. I was having a memory about the night I collapsed. Something about coffee tasting strange. I tried to keep my voice steady. You don't remember anything about that night. The doctor said memory loss was normal. I know, he said, but lately I've been having these flashes, just little pieces, and I keep remembering that the coffee tasted bitter, really bitter. He's starting to remember. The sleeping pills I crushed into his coffee, they would have made it taste bitter. What am I going to do if he remembers everything? What am I going to do if he realizes that his loving wife is the one who destroyed his life? What happens when he figures out that I've been lying to him every single day for 3 years? I don't think I can live with that. I don't think I can face him knowing that he knows the truth. But maybe that's what I deserve. I make him breakfast every morning, and I think about how I poisoned him. I kiss him goodbye when he leaves for work. And I think about how I lied to the doctors who were trying to save his life. I ask him how his day was when he comes home. And I think about how his brain damage makes it hard for him to remember the details. And every night, when he takes his pain medication for the headaches that I caused, I lie next to him in bed and hate myself more than I ever thought it was possible to hate another human being. The worst part is that my husband still loves me. He still tells me I'm beautiful. He still holds my hand when we're watching TV. He still says he's lucky to be married to me. And every time he does, I feel like I'm going to vomit from the guilt. Because he's not lucky to be married to me. He's the victim of someone who was supposed to protect him and instead nearly killed him. He's brain damaged because of me. He has chronic pain because of me. His life is harder every single day because of a decision I made in a moment of drunken panic. And he doesn't even know it. But he's starting to remember. And I think part of me wants him to remember. Because living with this secret is killing me. Because lying to him every day is destroying what's left of my soul. Because maybe, just maybe, if he knows the truth, I can finally start to face what I've done. Or maybe, when he finds out the truth, he'll do what I don't have the courage to do. Maybe he'll leave me. Maybe he'll make sure I face consequences for what I did. Maybe he'll make sure that everyone knows what kind of person I really am. And maybe that's what I deserve. Because I don't deserve forgiveness. I don't deserve a second chance. I don't deserve to have my guilt taken away by telling this story. But maybe someone out there who is thinking about lying to protect themselves will hear this and make a different choice. Maybe someone who is in a situation where telling the truth feels impossible will realize that the consequences of lying can be so much worse than the consequences of honesty. Maybe someone will learn from my mistake and choose courage over cowardice. Because the truth is, if I had just told the truth that night, my husband would be fine today. Our marriage would be strong. I wouldn't be living with this crushing guilt every second of every day. But I chose to protect my image instead of protecting my husband. And now, I have to live with that choice forever. I have to live with knowing that I hurt the person I love most in the world. I have to live with knowing that I am not the person I thought I was. I have to live with knowing that when it mattered most, I chose myself over the person who trusted me with his life. And I have to live with knowing that soon, very soon, he might remember everything. And then this nightmare will finally be over, one way or another. So if you're out there and you're facing a moment where you have to choose between protecting yourself and protecting someone else, please choose them. Please choose the truth. Please choose courage. Because living with the guilt of what I've done is worse than any embarrassment, any criticism, any judgment I might have faced if I had just been honest from the beginning. David deserved better than what I gave him that night. And he still deserves better than what I'm giving him now. But I don't know how to be better. I don't know how to undo what I've done. I don't know how to face him with the truth. All I know is that I nearly killed the love of my life, and I've been lying about it every day since. And that makes me someone I never wanted to be. Someone I can't forgive. Someone I can't live with. But someone I have to be for the rest of my life. If this story moved you, please share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe to Unheard. Your support gives voice to those who thought they'd never be heard. And if you have a confession of your own that you need to share, you can reach us at unheardchannel@gmail.com. Sometimes the only way to find peace is to finally tell the truth, even if it's to strangers who will never know your name.